So yesterday I dropped my phone and cracked the screen. It's got a couple little, it's got like three little fireworks shaped spots on it, and then it's got little cracks that go all the way across the screen. And apparently, since my mom's been having her own phone drama this week, my dad sent me a message a little bit ago saying that with the insurance that is on the phone, we can just take it somewhere and get it fixed. They can replace the screen. It's like, well, hey, that's easy. And now that you mention it, I have heard of people having that done before, but I completely forgot all about it. So, yeah. But I've been thinking a lot about divine timing this week, and how basically that just means like the moment that all the pieces come together just right to put you where you're supposed to be, right? So I mentioned the other day that I had made a payment on one of my student loans, and the money that I thought the account was going to come out of was not the one it ended up coming out of. So I had the money in the other account, but not in the one it ended up coming out of. And I kept watching my email because I was expecting, as soon as that payment went through, it was gonna take my take my amount that I had down, and I was watching for that. The other one doesn't send me email alerts, so it didn't tell me that account was now overdrawn. And I ended up trying to, like, the next day I was like, why has it not gone through yet? That should have posted by now. And so I went in to the app and saw that it came out of the wrong account and had ended up overdrawing the account, and then they even applied an overdraft fee on it. So I was all irritated trying to deal with that. And I knew from past experience that they can reverse the overdraft fees if you talk to them about it. And so I decided to go talk to them about doing that, because that money would be really nice to have in the account when I have other stuff that's trying to come out too, right? So I went to the bank that day, and they said it was grayed out, so they couldn't reverse the fee. And she said probably because it had just posted that day, or was like in the process of being applied. And she said it should like revert back on its own, but if it didn't, I could go back the next day, or the other lady that was in the office said I could even just call on the phone, right? Well, the calling option did not work out. Although I did talk to somebody that pissed me off, but also in the moment, I was all fired up, and it's like, it made me stand up for myself in a way that I hadn't done before. So that was kind of, or I don't do often. And it was just kind of like, he's kind of liberating, I guess. And so to find myself stepping into more direct ways of being after that has not been a strong point in my lifetime. But that day, when I went to the bank, that was the day my mom ended up losing her phone. And so there was some stuff going on with that, and I ended up being there to help them. But see, in that case, it was like divinely orchestrated that the stupid thing would come up because I wasn't paying attention to, only partly wasn't paying attention. I just didn't check my bank often enough on that one. But like, that whole glitch was because I had one student loan service provider, and then it moved to another one, and while I had started making payments through one account, they needed a debit card when I set up the plan for the next few months, and it took it out of a different account. So I got confused on which account it was going to come out of, and then it ended up going back to the first one, which is not where the money was. So that was a whole ordeal. But anyway, like, it went along with the divine timing piece as far as, you know, it was something irritating that happened, but it put me somewhere that I ended up being able to kind of help my mom and my aunt as they were navigating this other stuff, and, you know, being available with my phone since they only had my aunt's phone at that point. And then when I was there, and then we were able to, you know, Mom had Verizon on the phone, and I was communicating with my dad what was going on. So it was like a little easier on that end. And then, you know, just how some of the pieces were coming together. Like I said, that we're pretty sure the guy that worked there found it after my mom dropped it in the parking lot. And we say him, or I say him, because he was acting sketchy, and every time I said something out loud, he'd go disappear to the back, and then it's like it did something different. It's like I was calling the phone, and it would ring, 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 and then finally go to voicemail. And then I called it, and it went straight to voicemail. It's like, something happened, you know. And then my aunt was there, and I acknowledged that point. And then the next time I called it, after he disappeared to the back again, it was saying call cannot be completed as dialed. It's like, that's interesting. It's like, so something's definitely happening with this phone, like live action, you know. And, you know, so we're there dealing with the phone drama, and the Verizon lady was like, it is still pinging to that location, you know. And you know, it's like, the guy was just acting kind of weird, and like kept disappearing to the back, or would try to get away from where we were at. So I feel like one of those pieces to the divine timing is, yes, he was doing something he wasn't supposed to be doing, and not going to own up to it, obviously. But, you know, when it came up that all that stuff was happening, I feel like, no, I mean, obviously, if you're the one doing something sketchy and people are standing there talking about how something sketchy is going on, and you're the one doing those things, it's like, I feel like, you know, you're setting yourself up for some kind of tower moment. It's like, whatever the reason behind him doing that, if he needed the money, if he needed a phone, whatever, or if he's just being a dick and trying to steal something or get something that wasn't his, you know, doesn't really matter what the purpose or what the reasoning was. I think the purpose of it playing out like it was, I mean, basically teaching us all something, because I was kind of, you know, watching it from a slightly more removed spot than my mom was when she was stressed out because all of her information's on this phone and blah blah blah, and she pays everything and does everything on there and yada yada yada. On that hand, might teach her she might not want to have everything on there too. Yeah. And then, you know, like, there's been other stuff we've been trying to navigate through, because, of course, computer techie buddy said he recommends that 2-step authentication thing for everything, because especially since my parents were, you know, got themselves hacked their computer like 3 times in the span of a year and a half or something. And, you know, it's like, the first time it happens, like, this doesn't feel right. And I immediately, you know, since I was there, I reached out to the techie friend and another one of my really good friends from, you know, met them both in high school, and they don't do the same thing. I mean, one's got his own computer business, but the other one's starting to work in computers. He previously was a music teacher, though. And it's like I was talking to both of them because the computer techie friend wasn't responding immediately. It's like, oh no. So I went to the other guy, and then I was talking to both of them, and, we ended up taking my mom's computer to the techie friend with the business to have it fixed after all that drama. But he recommended the 2-step authentication, and it's helpful until the phone gets stolen, and then you try to do something. It's like you can get the email one, but you can't get the phone one because you don't have the phone. It's like, shit. So there's like all these different layers to it. It's like just watching how the pieces are weaving together, like on my end, is kind of interesting. But like that whole thing, like I wouldn't have been there to be able to observe what was happening, different layers of how it was fitting together, had it not been for this goof on my end with the bank account and having the stupid overdraft fee. Now, I ended up going to the bank the next day, and there was a long line, and I didn't want to wait. So it's like, I'll go back tomorrow earlier in the day, so it won't, even if there's, and I'll leave the dogs at home, so if I do have to wait, it's no big deal. But it's like, there's this whole thing. It's just like, come on. But, watching the different layers of how things interact, it's like, I mean, you don't know what it's going to be, what the big thing is to get you exactly where you're supposed to be. Like, okay, even back to when I got my ear pierced, all these weird ones, and I got out of the shower one day, and for some reason, the back on this one felt like it wasn't there. And when I looked, like the most I could see of it, like in the bathroom mirror, it looked like a regular post with like a, the threading that you would twist it down onto. But, and my mom saw it that way too, like when I showed her. So it's like, the back on this thing is missing, and I was stressing out because I had just got it done like the week before. I was like, oh no, it's like, I don't want to lose that. I just paid to have it done. So I talked to the shop, and they said, come on back, and they'd help me out with it. Well, I go back there, and the girl is talking about, she said, it's still there. She said, and basically, the kind that they use, it has like a, I don't know, a piece that snaps into it. I think, I can't see it. But she said the kind that they use, that it's basically, they use those to prevent that from happening. So if you do manage to lose the back on it, chances are you've already lost all of it anyway, just because of the way that it fits together. So it's like, I went all the way over there. That was like a 45-minute drive to the shop because I saw it as a threaded end, that nothing was there, and that was what my mom saw, and that was what I had felt when I was in the shower. And it's like, oh no. But then I get there, and she even takes a picture of it. She said, it's still there, and she shows me, and it's like, that is not what I saw, and that was not what my mom saw either. It's like, the universe can get you. And I, spent the entire drive back thinking about how that basically just meant universe can make me see whatever it wants me to see to get me where it wants me to be. So at the right time, the right place, all that stuff. It's like, that it's definitely, there are some layers to what's actually going on. But like that whole thing, and then like the deal with the bank, and then getting over there, it's like, obviously I'm not done with the bank. I got to go back tomorrow, but still there's that whole level of, divine timing, and like it can pull the strings however it's going to, and get you to where you need to be to encounter the people you need to encounter, to learn the lessons you're supposed to learn, and meet the people you're supposed to meet, and all that stuff. So yeah, it's kind of something that I've been thinking a lot about this morning. And and it goes both sides of that. If your energy is putting it out there that you're calling in more of the negative stuff, then like my mom kind of has that tendency right now. She's drawing the denser stuff to her because that's what she's putting back out into the world, right? So I feel like, and I told my aunt the other day, it's like, I don't feel like that guy was a bad guy. I feel like he saw an opportunity and decided to jump on it, but decided to jump on it in a not favorable way. So maybe he'll second guess doing that, or decide against doing that in the future because of how it ended up going down. Because I was just like, being that slightly more detached piece there, and just kind of watching how it was all fitting together. Okay, first off, detachment is kind of really cool because it teaches you all sorts of stuff that you would have missed otherwise. And like, I don't know. But it's just been really interesting to kind of piece it all together. And like, I was trying to help navigate the computer stuff, like after my mom left the room a couple nights ago. It's like, maybe I can mess with it a little bit and figure something out. And then my dad was still there kind of in the middle of it, and then between the two of us, what we were doing, it was like a conflicting thing, so it wasn't working in either of our favor either. And then I think what was it? Oh, I had brought that other phone in just to find out the other phone doesn't do messaging because we got my mom's phone number set up to it. Well, we actually leave it. Okay, there's people walking, so I might have to pause this here in a second because Gidge is watching. Leave it. We'll see. Where was I? I'm just gonna pause it because I know she's getting ready to do something. Okay, so far so good. We're rolling with the leave it, and she laid down, so, and Taz is just watching, so hopefully we'll behave. But yeah, it's just, okay, so like, I think if the messaging would have worked and it would have gone through that way, we would have been able to, do the little dance around the thing and make it happen, right? But it didn't. Because there's still, we still just, I don't know. I feel like, in a way, like we were working for the same thing, but with different approaches, so we kind of got in the way of each other as well, which is not entirely helpful. So is what it is. I went skating with my cousin yesterday, and we were talking about, we both kind of feel like now that my grandfather is gone and my grandma's not feeding into throwing everything she has at him to keep him alive, like now maybe she'll have the chance to live and make up for the time that she, has basically, all the years that she wanted to still travel but wasn't able to travel because he was afraid to go anywhere. And, everybody, while they supported her want to go visit her sister in another state, they also appreciated the fact that he was all wound up and couldn't let her go. And, you know, we would have been able to handle it if one sister would have taken their mom to visit her sister, then it would have been fine, because there still would have been two others behind that would have been able to help my grandfather. But he was so wound up about not letting her go anywhere that, you know, she just, I think it was one of those more trouble than it's worth kind of a things. So she just didn't. It's like, I feel like where she's at, she's starting to, you know, there's still much clutter clearing to be done, if you will. And she's working on getting some of his old stuff out of there. You know, she can make this space hers as she wanted to, because there's been so much that she hasn't been allowed to do because he didn't want it set up a certain way. He didn't want her puzzle table there all the time or whatever. Or, you know, he was always bitching about all the junk on the table and then ignoring the fact that, you know, he had his razor, like his electric razor on the table, all of his meds, you know, his little mirror so he could shave at the table and all this stuff. It's like, he wouldn't acknowledge the fact that that stuff was his. It was her problem that the table was a mess. So it's like, I get it. You know, I lived that existence too for a time. And, you know, I told my cousins, like, I feel like, you know, Grandma has said for a while, or she's made comments to my mom about, like, when I'm around and everything. And it's like, I feel like, okay, since I've been navigating my own healing process, I'm a lot mouthier. And a lot of people in my family don't see that as a good thing, but I feel like my grandma kind of respects the fact that I will call attention to the things that are bullshit. You know, she was talking about, I think I took her, when I took her to her hair appointment a couple weeks ago, it was the sisters thought she needed somebody to drive her over there. And I was like, you can drive, I don't care. It's like, I don't need to drive you there. I believe you can do it. I'm just here if you need me to be here, or if you decide you would prefer me driving or whatever instead. It's like, you want to drive? Drive. I don't care. And she's like, no. And she was going on and on about how the youngest daughter was just, tells her how terrible of a driver she is and blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay. I said, and were you driving at the time she was talking about how bad you were driving? And she said, no. I said, was she driving? She said, yes. I said, then tell her that she's the one driving and it's not her. It doesn't matter if she thinks she's a terrible driver because she wasn't the one in the driver's seat. So why is it a problem? You know, but I think she's kind of appreciating that I come back with the smart ass remarks in a hurry that are legit and straightforward. So, you know, my mom used to get mad at me because she saw me as being snarky with her father and she didn't appreciate it. It was like, of course you're going to see it that way because you're enabling the bad behavior. And if you're enabling the bad behavior, then those that, you know, shine a light on it and say, hey, that's not cool. You know, if you're the one that's enabling the problem, then of course you're going to see it as a problem when somebody else comes in and tries to challenge that way of, or that system of being, you know. So yeah, she got mad that she thought I was snarky towards her father and she didn't appreciate it. It's like, well, I personally think you're, far too much enabling the problem, so here we are. You know, and I've mentioned before that, you know, like, okay, the stuff he or my dad would say or do, and, you know, I would call attention to the fact that something was a problem, and she would just be like, well, you're not going to change them at this point in time. It's like, oh, you could have changed them probably 20 years ago. It's like, I'm pretty confident people can change if they want to, and one of the things that I'm thinking of on that end was like my grandma would always say my cousin's boyfriend's name wrong, like intentionally wrong, because she was like trying to be cute and funny. And one day I was like, that doesn't hurt anybody except for my cousin, the one that has told you multiple times how, his name is pronounced, and yet you're saying it wrong because you're choosing to intentionally do it. You could do it right if you wanted to, and if you cared more about her and the fact that she has told you that than being cute and funny, then you would say it right. And it's interesting, not too long after that, she started saying it right, and she has not gotten it wrong since, I don't think. It's like, so people can change. It's like, you have to give them the opportunity and show them that the other way is not working out. But that's kind of an interesting thing too. Like with my dad, it was the time my mom and I were eating ice cream in the car, getting ready to take something over to my grandparents' house, and my dad came out and showed her something on his phone. And it was something that was like kind of bigoted, and I said as much. I said, "Wow, bigot much?" or something like that. And he got all pissy and stormed off into the house. And my mom was like, "That is your father. He is like 70 whatever years old, and I have accepted him as he is." And it's like, then enjoy, because I'm not accepting that bad behavior. Screw that. And I feel like that's one of those things, like, the more people, if you unite the two aspects of yourself, you have to, connect with your heart, which is very difficult when we are told that everything about us is wrong because, society, culture, whatever. If we are whole and complete within ourselves, then we're not going to spend money on trying to fix ourselves, right? So, of course, those that benefit from us being incomplete have, their stakes in keeping us feeling incomplete, because then we can't become better than we are, or we can't, become better than we are, because, when you're living in that space of incompleteness, then you don't make good decisions sometimes, or you enable people on their bad behaviors and all that fun stuff. But it's like, once you realize what's yours and what's not, and once you set boundaries for what you will accept and what is not acceptable, it's like, the people that can't keep up with that or don't want to keep up with that, they'll fall away, because, they might see you as being a little bitchier. I've had that. I'm pretty sure my mom's thought it, if she hasn't said it, about me a few times. But it's like, once you know what you're okay with and what you're not okay with, and start drawing, lines, it's like, nope, that behavior is not going to stand, and you either gotta, step up into doing the better thing, or just step out of my life, because I'm not going to tolerate the bullshit anymore. It's like, once people do that more and more, being true to who they are within, that whole being complete within yourself, I feel like the bad behavior is not going to be able to it won't be able to exist like it has, because there will be enough of us that the behavior that see it as a bad behavior and can look at you, because, if you just look at somebody who's doing the wrong thing, or if you're the person doing the wrong thing and somebody looks at you knowing what you're doing, and it's like, it kind of makes you shrink down a little bit, and it's like, oh, that's not right, but if I can get away with it, then maybe it continues. Or if you see, just that dissonance with that feeling of, it's wrong, I know it's wrong, and yet you're still doing it. You're going to have to either decide, to do something different next time or whatever. I don't know. There's just some things I've been thinking about. It's like, I feel like just the web of connectivity with everything. It's like whether there's that dense piece that's dragging it all down and pulling people into the negative dynamic, or whether it's the positive that's trying to pull everything else back up. It's like the interplay, when the two, when somebody's affected by both sides of it and can see both aspects of what's going on, and then be like, I like that way better, and start making more positive choices for themselves, and then eventually the dense stuff won't be able to stick, because enough of us will have done what we needed to do to help do our own healing, get rid of the denseness that we can transmute for ourselves and for the collective, and that's our part, that specific, all that convergence of things that make us who we are. If we choose to heal the deepest wounds that exist within us, then it's like you start feeling better, and the negative ways of being, the dense energies, can't really stay around you as much. You draw in what you're putting out, and if you're choosing to elevate, you're going to bring others along, or bring others into your experience that are also on that same path, and then the web of connectivity that's moving toward the positive becomes stronger, and brighter. I feel like that made sense. I hope that made sense. Kind of made sense, I think. Yeah. It's just interesting. It's like, I saw a thing on, I was listening to Octane, and they said something about their webpage, and so I went, or their Facebook page, and so I went to their Facebook page for a minute, and then, there's a band on there talking about, they were listening to the radio, and then heard their song come on the radio, and they took a picture of the radio, and it was at 12:12. It's like, hey, it's like, we're on this path. Yeah. But it's like, it was kind of funny, because the only reason that I even went onto Facebook was because the DJ I was listening to said something about the, I think their top 20 countdown, and if you're on their Air Force or whatever, I don't know, and I went to look at something with that, and then I got sidetracked with this other thing, and it was like, that's kind of cool, and it's just like, thinking about like the divine timing aspect, and like the different pieces, like, okay, it takes as long as it takes because you have to choose to step into doing your part too, like my whole journey up until the past few years. It's like, it's always been trying to pursue the healing, but there was so much of the negative, dense energies that I had to connect with to learn what I came here to learn, so I could kind of could start my healing process and get to the really, the much deeper layers of that, and start doing things that I never would have seen myself as strong enough and capable enough of doing before. But you have to make that choice to step into the healing that you're here for. And even though it sucks sometimes, it does. It absolutely does. But, like, there are certain connections that we're meant to have that all we're waiting on is the pieces to fall into the right spot. And a lot of that is choosing to, okay, for me, when I was choosing to do things to help myself rather than just allow myself to get screwed over, because I've had a history of doing that too, because that's what I thought my life was when that was what was being reflected back to me, right? It was what I believed about myself because it's what I grew up in, and then it was coming back to me in a myriad of ways through different layers of bullying until I finally got into the situation where I married one, and then it was like, yeah, but honestly, okay, and like yesterday I called him an asshole on here. It's like, my experience of him was not ideal, obviously. But he was the version that I needed him to be for me to start making choices to choose myself, and to choose following what I've long felt I was meant to do in some capacity, right? Like, I always knew using my voice was somehow going to be a thing. I don't know that I really would have seen it being through a YouTube type means, but I used to just think writing all the time, and writing is still on my path, but there's so much of the talk therapy side of it that I've had to do to clear space and to understand parts of my own journey better. So when I finally get to the writing part, it's going to be much more coherent, and it'll be like, we got another dog coming, or we got people walking dogs. I'm just gonna say leave it. Luckily they're going the other way. Leave it. They heard it. And okay, I don't remember exactly where I was on that, but it's something with dealing with the stuff with my ex. It's like, I don't remember. Nope, give me a second. Okay, they're going down the path. We're good. Okay, so my ex was the version of icky that I needed him to be so that I could start choosing myself. And yes, I helped him along the way, and I feel like I helped his brother more because his brother had more at stake with the stuff that was getting said. And and also his kid. I feel like there were different levels to that whole thing, but if you want to look at it on the flip side, I was the version of me that brought out the worst in my ex at a certain level, because I wasn't able to stand in my power and to be my own person. I didn't know who I was. I was trying to navigate through that aspect of things. I don't know if my dog farted or what, but something smells all at once. I'm just going to assume it was probably Taz, because it's usually Taz. Sometimes it's Eva. But yeah, that's funky. But yeah, but like, since I wasn't able to stand up to my ex, it made room for the bad behavior to continue. Which is like with my grandfather and my grandma and my mom and their inability to draw the line against the bad behavior, it ended up bringing out more of the bad behavior and, making a bunch more people feel like shit, because, I mean, all the cousins to some degree or another kind of scattered a little bit, compared to the daughters. But yeah, it's like, because they were enabling the bad behavior, they saw more of the bad behavior. But if you point out that it's a bad behavior and it's not helpful, like when my uncle told asked my grandfather why he needed a babysitter, and that finally made it okay for my mom to go home while he was at the second rehab place. Of course, that reverted back when he went back to the hospital the next time. But there was a short span of time between the second rehab hospital and then the rehab part of the nursing home that he was at, where he was able to stay there all by himself. And my mom didn't need to stay there with him. And as soon as we went back to the hospital, she was right there again. It's like, that's not healthy. Nothing about that is healthy. But then, like I told her, the fact that he was in a void, he wasn't living, he just wasn't dying. And the reason he wasn't living wasn't because his body was strong enough to keep going. It was because, she and my grandma would get in there with, I don't know what we're going to do without you, and all that stuff. And then he would feel like he had to stay around longer, right? So it's like, that's just not cool at all. But it's, I love the shirt. Anyway, but yeah, it's like, when you're enabling the bad behavior, you're making it so they don't have to change. But if you call attention to the fact that it's not helpful and it's not healthy, then people can change. So, you just have to make the choices to have the boundaries, to draw the line in the sand, and you know what? We're not doing that. If you're going to do that, that's fine, but you're going to go do that somewhere else. I'm not feeding into your bad behavior. So yeah. And then divine timing is just the convergence of when enough of us are on this path and are starting to pull others into it more with us, because they're seeing that more and more people are not just tolerating the bad behavior. So it's step up or step off. And yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I was just thinking about like that divine timing aspect today, and going back to the twin flame thing, because that's the whole reason I'm here where I am. Because it's like, it's that thing that motivated me, but then what it's really teaching me is that I've always been complete within myself. And I just had to go within to figure that out. And so that's crazy, but like, there were so many things that I came here to learn and do first. So, I had to see those aspects of things before I could get to this point. But like I've said many, many times, it's like, when I was in high school, my senior year in high school, we actually did the prayer of Jabez thing with the church group. And I don't remember how it all was, but the idea, part of the prayer was expand my territory, something that I may not, or that I may not cause pain or whatever. Anyway, like the whole prayer, we had like this big group that devoted all this time to this thing, and it's like I was like all in, and then I started having like these little insights, I guess, as far as it was like there were knowings that, okay, like I knew that while I was standing in the driveway with my ex-boyfriend at the time, I had this knowing pop into my mind where we were all going, like all my drumline friends, we would all go our separate ways, but it would be Tyler's death in our mid-30s that brought us back together for a time. And then sure enough, but then there was another piece where I would be in my 40s before I would start making sense of everything. It's like, well, here we are again. And then there was that other one where I saw 5 guys that were going to be very important to me. And, we're all working together on basically healing the world kind of a thing, right? So Tyler's death in our mid-30s, because he was 34 and he died 10 days after I turned 35. But his death was the thing that made it safe enough for me to start healing from some of the stuff I'd been burying since I was like 7 or 8 years old, right? Because, and most of it was the shit with my cousin from when I was 8. But before Tyler's death, I wouldn't have talked to, if anybody had asked me about it, I wouldn't have owned up to it. When Tyler died, it was whatever is on the other side of death. He knows everything anyway, right? So there's no point in hiding it from him. So I started writing him letters, and it was basically starting my healing process, because he had died, and I knew whatever was on the other side, he already knew everything that I would have denied if I would have talked to him in person about it, at that time. So I just started owning up to it, and, realizing all the different things that had been connected to this drama that I carried my entire life, thinking one way about myself. And then when I was 35, finally realized that wasn't even true. It's like, the hell? That sucks. I spent my whole life believing this shit about myself, and then, come to face it head on. It's like, it wasn't what everybody made it out to be. It wasn't what I believed it to be. And it just, it was no longer the big weight that I had to carry, So then I had to, I've spent a lot of time navigating how that whole situation came about to begin with, but also all the things that played out in my life because I believed that way about myself, and because I saw myself in a negative light, and I hated myself as much as I possibly could, right? And that's another crazy thing about this whole twin flame thing, is like realizing that, okay, whatever I have gone through on my path, he will have gone through something comparable, because it's basically the other side of the mirror. And, I thought I was only affecting myself, but it was also affecting him, and what he was doing was affecting both of us as well, right? So if he believed bad about himself, if he believed that, okay, the boys weren't supposed to have emotions, or, intuition couldn't be trusted, all that stuff, that's an aspect of the feminine that he would have been burying in himself as well. So, okay, when I was, hating myself and seeing everything that I am as bad, it was an aspect, or the aspect of that I've learned to, that I have brought together within myself, the stronger part where I'm capable of setting boundaries. I am capable of taking action on my own behalf. I am capable of, there's more. There's so many layers to like just all the different parts of it, like the way it all comes together. It's just like, wow. It's like when you really sit back and think about it, it's like all this stuff has been, it's, like the other, think about when you have heard something that you internalized and took it as a negative thing. It's like all the things along the way that are trying to point you in the right direction or show you where you're at. That was one of those things that I picked up from the classes that I was taking at the Inner Path, the little metaphysical shop, was it's like we were sitting there in the group, and anytime somebody was talking about something, that was going to be the next thing. It's like it was another key on like another piece of the puzzle, if you will, and one week, I don't know why it came up. Somebody mentioned something about sea turtles. And in the next week, I saw a Jeep that there were sea turtles painted all over. It's like, or like little stickers or something all over. And it's like, sea turtles, that's interesting. And it was not immediate. But at some point, I put two and two together with the whole sea turtle thing and the fact that I have a sea turtle on my leg. I have a sea turtle tattoo. So, yeah, people walking in. Leave it. So, and like, it was funny because it's like it was blocked off to me, and it's like I was aware of it, but I didn't like grasp it until the other things shifted in, and then it was like, oh, everything is working together. It's all coming together. Everything is connected. And yeah, and the sea turtle thing's kind of funny because, turtles have been a big deal this year, because, that's one of the things they represent is patience, and, the Animal Apothecary Oracle cards. I keep pulling the card that's got a turtle and it says, small steps, big accomplishments. And it's a matter of getting started, just taking it one step at a time, one day at a time. Do whatever you're supposed to do today, and eventually you will see it has added up a lot more than you thought. But when when you just look at the thing that you're wanting to accomplish and you just see this mountain in front of you, and most of us get paralyzed and don't start moving because it's like, I can't do that. We talk ourselves out of it 1,000 times before we even get close to considering it as a possibility, and then even, like all the songs that are out there, it's like, I feel like they are little keys to this journey too. And like, the big one for me on, like, in the last, year and a half was Celine Dion's Love Again. It's still on my top 5 for the, the Spotify thing, year in review. It was number 5 this year. And I don't remember where it was released last year, but I know I heard it in September, I think, when I watched the movie by the same name, Love Again. And, my mom talked me into it because Sam Heughan was in it, and she loved him in Outlander, so it's like, we gotta watch this. It's like, okay. Whatever, as long for the ride. I was into movies. And then I watched this movie and, got the sense of, I had been listening to a lot of Abraham Hicks messages online, and they'd say, like, there's this one thing: if you are at least ready to be ready, then the universe will line you up with with the lessons you need to get you where you're meant to be. And so it's like, I watched the movie, and it's like, I was kind of feeling that way, and then I just kind of got like completely lost in this song that was playing over the end credits. And what is it? You don't have to move a mountain, just keep moving. It's like, oh yeah. And I had started writing regularly, but not. See, I know that I'm supposed to write like books at some point in time, but like not knowing what they're supposed to be about specifically or whatever, it's like I always felt like I was lost trying to do that, but I started writing, and if only through journaling, if that was all I got, as long as I was still writing something, then it was still productive. And then I realized it's like, the journaling has been hugely productive in this whole thing. Like, okay, I have the twin flame journals, right? So it's been for my process and for the connections I'm making on the twin flame journey, and places where he has specifically, maybe he put out a new song, or maybe I came across an interview where he said something that I needed to hear in that moment. And then it's like, just making these kind of connections and how everything is weaving together. And it's like, the reason I've always had, like, when I paint something, it's like there's so much chaos that has to be released first. So like my office, when I painted it most recently, and how it kind of Jackson Pollocked the fuck out of my walls, it's because I need to see the chaos outside of my system, and then I can start, I don't even know how that works, y'all. Seeing like just little things in the paint splatter, and recognizing that, okay, I want all the colors are going to be all the way around, but they weren't that way when I was just doing the first wall and a half, right? But by the time I got to the last wall, it's like, I have this color over here, I need more of it on the first wall, because then it brings it back together, but it's like, I have to see things outside of myself to make sense of them. It's like, whether somebody else is saying something to get the point that I need, or whether I'm talking through it and finding the point myself, because this whole YouTube thing has been like huge on my process, and I was terrified to do it, because like I know that, okay, I did that whole prayer of Jabez thing many times. It's like, yeah, let's do that. I like the sound of, doing something good with my life, and I want my life to matter more than just being terrified of doing anything, and thus never doing anything, because then who are you even, right? Like my grandfather and his obsession with dying and not doing anything different, but when it comes down to it, on the world stage, who is he? Like the people that knew him, friends he had in his lifetime, of course, they'll have fond memories. The family has fond memories. I have some moments that, that, like when when we were having that conversation on the back porch where he said, why do you always have to do everything different? You had two of the ugliest cats in the world, got damn geckos, tattoos, and now motorcycle class. And I looked at him and I said, how was it I phrased it now? I've said that so many times on here. It's like, oh, my sole purpose in life is to piss you off. It's like, as soon as I said that, it's like it hit him in some kind of way, and it changed, or it shifted the dynamic in our connection. But, there was still more that I had to get through on the journey before I could get to this point that I'm at now. But, yeah. And, that's one thing I was talking to my cousin about yesterday. It's like, the stuff with my family, like even the stuff with my mom, it was like, there has been some hard stuff that I've had to face, right? And stuff that, I've resented her for in the past, and all that stuff. But I believe it is a universal law that there is no growth without suffering. And honestly, I like where I'm at right now. And I like that I'm, being able to do this thing that I previously was terrified of doing. And I wouldn't have been able to get to this point in my life without all the people that were there pulling me in the direction of the negativity and all that stuff. It's like, that stuff took me to the point where it was like, I'm not okay with this. I don't want this for my own life. This has been the thing that gets me to where I want to be, right? And yeah, I'm not there yet, but the journey is like, man, the journey is everything. It's not just getting to the destination, right? You have to go through the journey. You have to learn the lessons you're meant to learn before you can truly appreciate, the destination. And like, I definitely feel that with everything I've been through in my lifetime. And like I've said before, the people that, like the bullies along the way, it's like, I could always see the space where they were acting from their own wound, and their inability to confront their wound brought me a lot of pain in my life. But at the same time, it was only because they were carrying their own pain too, and they didn't know how to do anything or be anything other than the wound, right? So they acted from the wound and caused a whole lot of wounding in my own life. But I've never been one to just want to let that be good enough. It's like, I remember being that little 4-year-old kid and getting really excited about like the, oh man. Like getting really excited about the song, right? The, Somewhere Out There. As I watched the movie An American Tail, and that song was in the movie, and I fell in love with the song, and like every time I've heard that song in my lifetime, it just hits me all over again, and when I first was, that first experience of it was just, wow. Imagine that, there would be such, this love possible, that you go live your own life and have, all the lessons you're out to learn, you would go through all that stuff, but then, knowing that this one person that you're meant to be with is out there, and I've looked at it, when I looked back into it, like especially with the twin flame stuff, is real. Like I've always known that it's there, but then I kind of made the connections, like, what if the time frame of the song was lining up with if that was like when he, like him checking in before he incarnated, because okay, well, putting the pieces together, that was when I was 4, and I used to say 4 to 6, it was somewhere in that range, but I'm pretty sure it was 4, because that was, my mom and her cousin had me and my cousin together all the time, because he was 3 days older than I was, so we're able to keep each other entertained on that end, and they could do other things, and we watch movies and it was okay. And for the early years it was fine, until 8, and then he just, then that all went to hell. But okay, so that movie came out, I don't remember when the movie came out. I think the song was released in 1987, which was when I was 4. And in the time it used to take movies to make it to VHS tapes, there was some time there. So I think the movie might have come out like 86 or something, but then 87, I don't know, whatever. 87 was when I was 4, and I feel like the draw for me was that time frame, but also because I've said on here many times, back in 2020, when I was thinking maybe I was wanting to be open to the idea of dating and an actual relationship, right? My divorce was finalized in July of 2019, and so I was kind of thinking I wanted to be open to possibilities again, and so I was on like these dating apps to see what was out there. And one of the big things was what age range you're looking for, and I thought about it very seriously and was like, I don't think I could realistically date somebody more than 5 years younger than me at that point in time. And it's like just life experience and all that stuff. It's like I feel like 5 years is a big enough gap, and that's probably the cutoff, so that was the cutoff at that time frame. And I think it was also me lining up with the piecing together who the twin flame was, because I had in 2020 I encountered his energy, and that was kind of where it was like it started really making bigger shifts. But yeah, from what I can tell, he appears to be about 5 years younger than me. Now, I haven't seen anything specifically saying the year he was born in, but the reason that I, because this is how I've been piecing it together my whole life, because my school mascot was a dragon, and oh man, in 2000 we did a marching band show called The Year of the Dragon, because it was the year of the dragon, and so my band director wanted to kind of play on that theme, right? So we did a show, so like that was a big thing. So it's like dragons have come up many times, and they were always a big deal because, of course, being with the school that had the mascot as the dragon, then of course, for band we used to give each other like little, I forget what they called it. It's like you would get somebody's name and then you would get them something for the next week, like maybe candy or like something they liked, or like little stuffed animal things or whatever. If you saw something, you would get things, so they would have something. And I don't know if the entire band did it or if it was just like particular sections, or I don't remember how I think it was a band thing. But I got a lot of little stuffed dragons or little dragon figurines along the way. I don't think it was every week. Maybe it was. I don't remember. I just remember I get these little things. And yeah. But I mean, it was just a fun thing that we did. So, but I would end up with all these little stuffed, like little Beanie Baby dragons or whatever. I got a few of those kind of things. And so dragons were obviously always a big thing. Well, so when I made the connection, or when I decided that I don't think I could date anybody more than 5 years younger than me, well, that would put them being born in 1988-ish, and that was the year of the dragon too. And I remember being in high school and having this moment when I was taking an accelerated English class so I could get college credit, and we had this writing assignment where I think the assignment was something with your name meaning and writing, I don't know. I wrote a poem and okay, so my name is Sarah Lynn, and Sarah means princess, and Lynn depends on the translation. One of the it's like a body of water or something, and of course there's obviously different types of bodies of water. But I did this Princess of the Lake. I wrote a poem about it or something, and I remember thinking when I was doing this this writing project that it would be really cool if I came to find out that I had left myself little clues all along the way in this journey. And like I struggled with suicidal ideation for like the majority of my lifetime. So I was like, what if, my name meaning princess was a little nudge that there's a lot more going on than you think there is, and you're a lot more important than you think you are. And, it was just like a little, one of those nudges on the way. There's something to keep me moving, one of the little hints. And now I'm finding that I think that's very much the case. Hey. Ziva's licking the seat now. Hey, quit. Look, have water. I got a water bowl. Have water. Quit licking the seat. Zibbity. Now she'll lick the water. Okay. But yeah, and I think that goes back to the whole divine timing aspect too. It was just all the right pieces coming together when you make sense of everything, all the things together. Yeah. Zibbity. Hey, stop it. Stop it. That's kind of annoying. Yeah. Anyway, I think this is probably long enough, and now she's like licking like a fiend, and that's gonna get on my nerves. So yeah, I'm gonna call it. And as always, I appreciate you, and until the next time, see ya.